It always seems to rain when I'm driving over here. Being Florida, summer is the wet season, so thunderstorms are commonplace between 4 and 7 p.m., around the time I'm driving to my writers group. I like it there. There's a certain creative energy in the air among a group of people who are all trying to do the same thing. I'm fortunate the rain stops and no lightning tonight. I step out of my car and hurry inside. The meeting opens with brief introductions, and then I'm left alone with my pencil and blank notebook. I stare. I've got nothing. So, I tell my eyes to survey the tabletop for ideas. A horizontal line marking a leaf joint, a few minor scratches, a natural circular pattern in the tan wood. As it's the table's most interesting feature, I slide my notebook over an inch to expose it fully. It stares back. I mean, it really stares back. Its wreath of amber fibers expand and crunch inspectively at me. It blinks. "What are you doing?" it asks. "Sitting in a room full of people but talking to a table?" "I meant before that." "I was trying to describe you. I guess you caught me staring. What have you got so far?" "Well, not much. Not much to see. Give me that." I start and pull my arms up off the table as it tilts my notebook and absorbs it diagonally into its surface. Will I get that back?" I counter feebly. It reaches up and grabs my hand. "Can we get out of here? I've been in this room a really long time. Same people, same food, same playlist." Its staring eye waxes hopeful and affects my empathy. "Besides," it continues, "if you're trying to fabricate a story about me, you'll have a much easier time if you see me actually out there doing things." It registers my wavering. "Tell you what," it suggests. "Do you have a place where I can hide for a minute?" "Yes, I think so," I concede. Okay, give me a minute to pay the bill. Then on the count of 3, you can leap up, fold, and jump into my waist pack." Citrine granules sparkle across Table's eye. "Okay, ready." I sense it watching me eagerly as I settle my account with the waitress. I'm hoping that if she's distracted by my paying early, she won't notice that I took one of their tables. Once complete, I stuff my wallet back into my pack, but am careful to leave the zipper open and a little extra room for Table. I place my hand on Table's surface and firmly tap. 1, 2, 3. Table then propels its legs up off the ground and sweeps them into a graceful pike while collapsing its joints. At first, I wasn't sure whether it would fit into my waist pack, but got it. I remembered a quick goodbye to the people sitting nearest me and slipped out the door, waist pack bulging. Thankful for having parked in the back lot, I hastened out of view. I wasn't sure what Table had imagined itself doing once out in the world, but I was eager to leave the vicinity before its absence was noticed. So I tossed my pack onto the passenger seat with my new friend still stuffed inside and quickly drove off. Where would it like to go? That's still open. A park, a library, Trader Joe's. "So where to?" I glance over and ask. "Mmph," it articulates from cramped quarters. "Right, roller skating it is." As we take to the floor, I'm impressed with Table's coordination. Its forelegs finesse turns and even keep time to music with the agility of jointed legs. I skate up beside it and project over the poppy soundtrack. "You've been wanting to do this for a while, haven't you?" Its responding glance is a euphemism for, "No kidding." "But don't you like being at Table?" I ask. It regards me patiently, then swishes around the next corner. "But I am being a Table, just a bit outside of your paradigm." This gives me a moment's pause. I swivel my wheels correctively, do a couple more laps, then glide off the rink, stopping myself on the carpeted pole at its exit. I trudge along the confetti print rug to a bench and watch Table, lapping kids, parents, and teens. It takes a while, but it finally emerges from its zone and notices my absence. I watch it scan the floor for me, then register my whereabouts and skate over. Paralleling itself against the wall behind me, it wedges into an unobtrusive position, adjacent to my bench. I begin. "So what else do tables do? Until today, I had no idea you could talk, leap, or skate." "I said I'm being a table. I didn't say I am a table." Um, You're gonna have to draw me a picture. It stifles a chuckle. What's funny? Well, I am drawing a picture, it obviates. Listen, you don't have to try to be enigmatic. You already are. What are you talking about? He looks at me with an air of patron long-suffering and releases a sigh. Ashen furrows collapsing around its coffee pupil. I'm from the studio drawing class that meets at the same location as your writers group, except on Mondays. I'm working on drawing this table, and I'm in the process of immersing myself in it in order to understand it better. Okay, I get it. Is this helping? Yes, actually. I have a better sense of its proportion and energy. Okay, well, great. It, certainly has a lot of energy, and I'm sure your research will enliven your drawing. Silent approval. But if I may ask, how have you come to inhabit it? The artist formerly known as Table again suppresses an insider's chuckle, then replies, through the Inhabit app. He sees I wince a little at his perceived sarcasm and elaborates. It's an app that allows you to travel to or indwell whatever image you give it. Really? Never heard of it, I said, a little relieved that I'd misinterpreted his answer. So, what's it like being Table? Well, at first it was more interesting than I thought. It was pretty fun to people watch. I was privy to all manner of conversations. I also read people's emails and compositions when they weren't looking. You really get to know them that way. But, as I said, after a while it was the same sort of people, same food, same music. I don't know how people who work in stores and restaurants can stand it. I know, I've always wondered how the ice cream man does it. So, how long do you intend on being a Table? I think I'm good. I really did just want the chance to understand its form through athletic movement. You're pretty meticulous. I would have just sat down and drawn the table. Silent approval. But if I may ask, how have you come to inhabit it? The artist formerly known as Table again suppresses an insider's chuckle, then replies, through the Inhabit app. He sees I wince a little at his perceived sarcasm and elaborates. It's an app that allows you to travel to or indwell whatever image you give it. Really? Never heard of it, I said, a little relieved that I'd misinterpreted his answer. So, what's it like being Table? Well, at first it was more interesting than I thought. It was pretty fun to people watch. I was privy to all manner of conversations. I also read people's emails and compositions when they weren't looking. You really get to know them that way. But, as I said, after a while it was the same sort of people, same food, same music. I see. So, how long do you intend on being a Table? I think I'm good. I really did just want the chance to understand its form better through movement. You're pretty meticulous. I'd have just sat down and drawn the table. You were prepared to spill an hour's worth of ink describing it. I'd call that pretty meticulous. Anyway, thanks for helping me capstone my study. I've got plenty to go on now. Okay, let's drive you back and try to sneak you in before they think I stole you. The artist formerly known as Table. Wait, what's your actual name? Sorry to interrupt, but I can't have that long title bombing the flow of my story. No problem. It's Scott. Marianne. Good. So, we roll over to return our 6 skates. The skate attendant greets us coolly. Nice table, she deadpans. We had a chair in here last week. Good skater. She turned to my friend. Listen, I'm sure whatever you're doing is fine. It's only a problem when people start aiming it at each other. She narrows her eyes at him while collecting our skates, then carries them off without another word. Not sure how to re-engage after that chilly aside, I ask, Scott, how commonly used is this app? You'll have to forgive that I'm a little out of the technological loop. Well, it's been around for about a year or so. It actually hasn't been released yet, but it's known in some circles. From his flat blonde surface, his eye wanders thoughtfully over the ceiling's texture. I mean, I've used it for pretty straightforward purposes, but I'm not everybody, he says, his gaze finishing its course and resting on something just beyond me. Huh. Well, anyway, we'd better get you, back, I conclude. We stride out of the rink together, Scott's straight legs curling backwards slightly at each impact. I push open the door and hold it while he exits. That was kind of a strange answer she gave you, I hint as I stuff Scott upside down into the minivan. Do you know her? Yes, he replies, his legs dangling above him, just clearing the roof. From work. I think for a moment, then buckle in and glance back through my rearview mirror, addressing Scott's feet. So, what's your day job anyway, when you're not busy drawing still life? The table never answers. Instead, I watch one of my hands place itself on the wheel, while my other hand turns the key and unlocks the parking brake. It's a strange feeling floating overhead, watching myself going through familiar motions, yet restrained from participating. I look behind me and try talking to Table again, but this time it doesn't respond, or show any sign of animation for that matter. It's different with Table because it never was, whereas Evicted, I just have to linger and watch myself drive. Then I face forward again and attempt to talk to my inhabited self. Scott, where are we going? I ask. Return the table, replies my own voice. I'm glad for that, but I'm uneasy with the turn things have taken, so I ask, is this what the skate attendant meant? It is a little unnerving to suddenly be ejected from your own body, and then to watch it doing things on the part of someone else. She's just as bad. She does this too? Yes. And I design apps, to answer your question. So does Henrietta. We were both working on a prototype for Inhabit when our company lost funding for it. Since then, we've been in kind of a race to complete it and to patent it ourselves before the other one does. Oh. Before any work began, our company had drafted some proprietary and ethical guidelines for the testing and overall function of the app. But now, unmoored from that, we're each kind of operating out of our own honor system. And, of course, the more assertive we are about testing and expanding capabilities, the quicker we complete it. I see. And the drawing class? Drawing's just always been a hobby, but now it kind of doubles as an aid for developing the app's sensory capabilities. Ah, I nod, still wrestling with the disorientation of looking and talking to my inhabited self. Scott, the table, was weird enough. He picks up on my uneasiness and tries to placate it by making conversation. He drives and talks with the nonchalance of a cab driver. So, what are you doing at that writers' group? Questions my own voice, eerily projecting the internal conversation I've had with myself many times before. Well, being stuck in a public place for an hour with nothing else to do forces me to write. It can be hard to concentrate at home. But on a fundamental level, probably the same reason you do what you do. Maybe that common desire to extract a bit more out of life, a touch of boredom. Maybe imagining things to be so much more than they are is a way out. Inhabited me looks like he's about to say something, then stops and considers. I extend my attention to him, hoping to encourage him to continue. I wait, then let it go. After a few moments' pause, I decide to return to an unanswered question. So, Henrietta is an app developer who also works part-time at a skate rink? No, but she inhabits it sometimes through the app. It's one of her sandboxes where she tests her inanimates, that and playgrounds. Oh, kids must love that. Yeah, it's always a big hit. Like me, she's dabbled in both, but lately she's focused more on inanimates, whereas I think the greatest application will be people. So she thinks I delve into the unethical, but I would say that programming it to properly inhabit animates is the safer route. Because when you put this into people's hands, it's not like they won't try it on each other. Better to develop it with that in mind and to put safeguards on it now before it hits the general market and people figure out how to do who knows what with it. Yeah, I would agree. Have you ever been inhabited? I ask. Did you mind? I mean, it's a very strange feeling, and I can't say I like it. Sorry about that. I'll get you back in soon. And no, I don't mind the strangeness of it, because I know that it opens up so many possibilities in areas like medicine and scientific research, among other things. For example, pre-screening for the success of organ transplants or designing deep-sea exploration gear. Oh, yeah, I can see that. But when you derive identity from body, what usually happens to the ousted one? Do they just float here like I am? He hesitates. I'm still working that out. Usually there's a clean body-to-body swap, or if the host is unaware of the arrangement, there can be cases where there may be a little bit of temporary disembodiment. I avert my eyes to refrain from glaring. Do inhabitations ever go badly? I ask. A little more discomfort. You know, any body of research is going to come with some sort of blooper reel, especially when human subjects are involved. For example, there's the question of whether one's consciousness always transfers to a new brain, or whether it stays put with the brain it's always been a part of. So there have been, very occasionally, situations in which the inhabitor's consciousness and the host's incumbent consciousness simultaneously occupy the same brain, which has led to certain skirmishes, which I have been, of course, quick to jump in and resolve. But as you can see, that's far from the norm. Two disembodied eyebrows rise. Scott appears to, rather self-consciously, divert his attention to the Target store we pass on the left. I watch my back's subtle movement as it breathes, my hands attentively gripping the wheel as they steer. I get the feeling that Scott allows his enthusiasm to eclipse a sense of logical caution. Because of this, I really don't trust him. But given my optionless circumstance, I try not to saturate my misgivings too much. Instead, I try to be helpful by suggesting, I have to say, it sounds like Henrietta is onto something with her ethical concerns. It sounds like they'd be never-ending. Is it really worth releasing? Well, if I don't, someone else will. And I trust me more. He steers absently. And that thing you were saying about wanting to extract more out of life is interesting. Honestly, that feeling's always haunted me. I think that feeling haunts a lot of people. And so developing in habit is your outlet for it? No, I really think it's the solution, for me and for other people. I mean, I learn so much each time I do this, from each one of you. I acquire all these memories and it grows my consciousness and informs my work. I keep a catalog. Anyway, you seem nice. I hope you don't mind. This is for the greater good. I'll be back in a little while. With that, inhabited me aims his phone at disembodied me, and in the same moment, I sense the alien encasement of wood. An awareness of my rehoused senses falls into place, and I try flexing my muscles against their stiff frame. It's very difficult to move now, but a moment's study teaches me how to rotate my eye out to my underside. Then I open it to see the roof of my van. Then Scott opens the trunk, pulls me out, and sets me on my feet for the first time. Before I've learned to speak, he quickly folds me at my leaf joints and carries me inside, purposefully glancing around to register whether we've attracted any attention. Then he's gone. No one's noticed us much, or if they have, they seem uninterested. Afraid to speak and draw attention to myself, I remain quiet and consider hard what to do next. Physically, I pass the time by training my greater eye control. I practice shifting it across my top, then down one of my legs. As it travels partway down, it meets another table's roving eye. Both widen and lock, then maneuver, articulating a silent conversation of surprise and greeting. We expand, contract, and flicker emphatically. When an eye is all you've got, it's a deaf communicator. But then my neighbor spoke. "Who was that who left you here?" It whispered. "Scott," I answer. "Psst," it scoffs. "Did he say he'd be back soon?" "Yes," I blink. It rolls its eye, then looks very deliberately up at the laptop on the table directly next to me and prompts, "It has inhabit on it." My eye flashes conspiratorial accord. Then I practice stretching and flexing my top muscles. With great extensive effort, I stretch over to grasp the laptop, tilt it sideways, and draw it down through my wood fibers. Got it. I glance over to my neighbor. Its color bands brighten in approval. "What should we do with it?" my look queries. Its furrows collapse and hug its pupil wryly. It clearly wants to leave. Sorry, I wasn't sure if you were here voluntarily or if someone else put you here, I explain. Second table looks at me questioningly. Well, Scott said he'd been here voluntarily, inhabiting this table as a study for an art class. Second table rolls its eye even higher. Is that what he told you? Embarrassed at looking rather gullible, I decide to stop talking. They're always doing that whole research group, to each other and to random victims. Nothing we can do about it, so let's just get back to ourselves. I've been stuck here a while. It tells me to pull up photos of us both off social media, then begins walking me through the app itself. At first I wonder if second table might be Henrietta, but then I see his picture and he's not. I select pictures of Cameron and of me, then I activate Inhabit and am about to press Enter when it occurs to me that there may be more than two of us who are simultaneously being occupied and marooned here as furniture. I send Cameron a parenthetical glance and don't wait for a response as I take a moment to explore Inhabit's dashboard. I see an option to scan the vicinity for other inhabited subjects. I hit scan and wait. After a pause, the screen begins to populate with outlines that match the live layout I see before me. Then, in another moment, colored dashes begin encircling some of the furniture, including us. Then a few more populate. Then more. My eye widens. I check to see if Cameron's looking at the screen too. His intent expression tells me that he is. It turns out we're standing in a room nearly full of inhabited objects, and the physical people are actually in the minority. The realization emboldens me against my fear of attention. Maybe if I speak up, they'll also be more at ease. Excuse me, I interject into the murmur of conversation and background music. Is anyone here inhabiting a table? Slowly, a few wooden hands go up. Their owner's eyes look unexpectedly first at each other, then at me, then back at each other. My question stuns mute the people seated at the furniture. Conversely, a nervous boldness quickens among the inhabited items. Coffee or kitchen? One finally asks. Human heads turn. The one seated at the speaker jumps up. I hear his keys hit the floor. Kitchen? A few hands go down. I mean, both. It doesn't matter. Couches and chairs, too. An overwhelming number of hands go up. I check my screen again. Kitchen appliances? Are you able to hear me back there? Yeah, calls the espresso machine. Cameron's eye smiles after the direction of the kitchen. I'm sure he, too, was unaware of how much company he'd had. Okay, I announce. We're going to get us all back to where we belong. But I'll need everyone to help me pull up a human image of yourself on this computer in order to tell the app where to send you. The furniture stares. You know you can move, right? I mean, most of you just raised your hands a minute ago. You can learn to make your furniture arms and legs move too. In fact, just today I saw an experienced inhabitor make this table I'm in roller skate. More wooden stares. Anyway, try it. It's new for me too, but I'll try to get closer to you in case you find moving too difficult. Moments of transitional silence settle over the room. The humans glance at one another, some amused, some visibly nervous, but trying not to let on. Then, one by one, they begin to stand up or move aside as tables lurch, couches strain, and chairs totter out from underneath them. I, likewise, begin laboring toward the center of the room. After my first lunging movements, I falter to a stop in deference to a blender sculling out from the kitchen, with the espresso machine waddling along not far behind on its tiny feet. Meanwhile, our wondering human audience are a wall of phones, photographing and recording it all. Despite the significant physical exertion involved, the inanimate's experience is rewarding. Those who succeed in moving first watch and encourage their more daunted neighbors. Matching bar stools take their first halting steps together. Human onlookers stand and cheer as the girthy couch hefts its foot forward for the first time. The panini maker, quickest and lightest on its feet, scooches along the bar counter, obliging to selfies with new fans. Then, one by one, Cameron and I direct each one back to his own human body. And last of all, ourselves. The humans continue to look on for a moment, a bit wistful for the nostalgia of wonder. Next week, I again managed to avoid thunderstorms on the way to the writers' group. I've spent the interval pondering last week's events, and have begun a new short story about it. Also, I've been picking up after small but annoying changes Scott made to my personal environment during his hijack. My speaker is in a different place on the dashboard of my car from where I normally keep it. Some of my shoes were in the middle of the floor when I first got home, as opposed to being tucked neatly into the rack by the door. And as for the kitchen, he's not good with lids. Knowing what I do of him, though, it fits that he may be kind of a tunnel vision type who loses track of basic life details. But now that my life is mostly back in order, I'm looking forward to going back to some focused, uninterrupted time to work on my new story. I park in the back, grab my notebook and pencil, and walk in. To the path of an ambling coffee table, making its way over to the center of the room, where various furniture and kitchen equipment are gathered and conversing, a few of them practicing moving casually along with the background music. I'm surprised at how pleased I am to revisit this. I approach the lively company and recognize voices. Apparently, this is my writers' group. I guess word spreads quickly over social media, and that our leader decided to experiment with a new format this week. I must have missed the announcement. Feeling a little conspicuous at being the only one to have arrived human, I escape over to the counter to order. As I stand there looking at the menu, I sense a presence. I look down, to my right, and there is a wooden eyeball on the stool staring up at me. "Hey," I greet it. It looks a little sullen. "I'm sorry, I don't recognize you like that. Are you part of our group?" "No," replies Scott's voice. "Oh, hello," I respond, surprised. Then, with a combination of curiosity and forced cordiality, "It's nice to see you again. Have you been here long?" His iris darkens a shade as its rays fold in on themselves a little, like aperture blades. "Yes, most of the week." "Not voluntarily, I take it?" I say with a genuine note of compassion. He stares. "I see. Couldn't you access the app from someone's device here? That's how I got back to myself last week," I suggest a little awkwardly. "I was locked out." "Of the app?" I complete. "Oh, your former team members." Scott rolls his eye. I suspect Henrietta might not be the only one in that circle who disapproves of his haphazard research. I could tell it would help him to talk about it, and my group still looks too caught up in the novelty of things to launch into a serious writing session. So I sit down on the stool next to him to listen. And as I do, he reaches up, snatches my waistpack off my shoulder, and grabs my phone. He's very quick with his own invention, so before I could think, I'm whisked down into the stool below me. Then my body's off, out the door. I blink. My ghost lungs try to press breath into wood as I stare after myself. Stunned and feeling embarrassed at being again so gullible, I sit alone for a few minutes. Then my mind wanders to Scott, off messing up my car and house again, no doubt, but fundamentally chasing something he may never catch. I shouldn't be angry. I've been there. And while I've never turned anyone into a stool, I may have been a bit haphazard myself at times. And, shady ethics aside, he's done a good work, here at least. I look over at my group, lightheartedly practicing floating their wooden eyes across their surfaces and bending their legs, comparing fledgling walks. Here are a group of people who have long embraced the pursuit of imagining things to be so much more than they are. And Scott's, Henrietta's, and whoever else's work has enabled them to live their dream in a tangible way this evening. I strain a maiden step forward against my wooden shell, then another. Then I join them, and eventually settle down to conclude this story. It ends as it began a week ago, here